Hello and welcome to the Bloggers Magazine on I24 News. As the conflict between Israel and Gaza continues, today's show will focus on how it affects Arab and Jewish relations within Israel and abroad. Certainly this is a complicated time for the 20% of Arab Israeli citizens. For our discussion today, we are joined once again by Janan Bsoul, a student and freelance journalist. Hello, Janan.
Hi, Adam.
And Remez, media coordinator at the Shutafut Sharaka, an organization which promotes equal rights for all Israeli citizens, both Jewish and Arab Palestinian. Hello to you, Ari.
Hi.
Ari, can you tell me a little bit about the work you guys do at Shutafut Sharaka?
Shutafut Sharaka is a coalition of 10 social change organizations, both Jewish, Arab, and joint organizations. Mm-hmm. We advocate equality for the Arab citizens of Israel and fight racism and promote values of shared society.
All right. Janan, last week you were here. We talked a little bit about the piece you wrote in Time Out Magazine, but I don't think we heard enough about it. We will in just a minute, but first, let's begin with today's portrait. A couple of months ago, we dedicated a show to the Arab-Israeli identity crisis. While working on that show, we came across a study by Professor Sami Smucha of Haifa University showing that between 2012 and 2013, fewer Israeli Arabs defined themselves as Palestinians, and more considered Israel a good place to live. The study was published in May of this year, and since then, as we know, a lot has happened. There's no doubt that during this conflict, Arab Israelis are feeling more marginalized than ever before. For more on this, let's take a look at today's portrait by Yael Gaton.
For decades, Haifa has been a symbol of coexistence between Jews and Arabs. But with the operation in Gaza, the quiet has been shattered most recently in violent protest between right and left, Jewish and Arab protesters, which took place Saturday, July 19th. Despite the rising tension, there is an oasis of peace. This is the end of the day at a bilingual preschool hand-to-hand together in Haifa. 40 children, Arabs and Jews, up to the age of 3, are going home. They're too young to understand the significance of the egalitarian world created in their preschool. Out there, in the world of adults, two languages, two nations do not always coexist peacefully.
The people I meet after preschool are Jews like me. I have no friends really that are Arabic-speaking friends.
It's more natural for me when we go home after preschool to call an Arab mom and say, let's go out. Sometimes we try to meet Jewish people.
The Hand in Hand Foundation initiates projects throughout the country against war, incitement and racism. Their goal is to bridge the gap as much as possible and attempt to create a common language. But it's not always so simple.
From the beginning of the preschool, I can say I felt like I didn't belong. I cannot really share with everyone there the sorrow I feel for what is happening in Gaza, or that this country's actions are not always to my benefit as an Arab citizen, rather for the Jewish state.
Since the conflict, I wanted to call a parents' gathering to share our feelings about the situation. But I was also apprehensive about doing it. And I debated it with myself, whether I really want to hear the difficult things they have to say.
I really do not know what will... Sorry? It frustrates me and my friends, and most of them have left the country because they do not want to live this reality. That our children and their future is uncertain.
Earlier this morning, two kids fought over a tractor, Yusuf and Amitai. it is unclear who has first dibs. Let Yusuf be the first, says the teacher. Then Yusuf will give you your turn. In the confine of preschool, conflicts are easily solved, but it's uncertain what the future holds for Jewish and Arab community in Israel.
All right, so Ari and Janan, from your experience, how the feelings that this mother, the Arab mother, expresses, her frustration, how does that reflect the general feelings within the Arab communities? Let's start with you, Ali.
I feel that most Arabs that I know are more frustrated with being discriminated by the law and by the government than not spending their afternoon with Jewish parents and having fun with them.
Right.
So I think this focusing on whether a long-term process of creating a shared society where Jews and Arabs also spend their time together, that's at the end of the scope of trying to form a shared society.
There are more urgent matters at hand.
Definitely.
Janan, do you agree?
I believe that the frustration we saw earlier is specific to mixed cities.
Right.
Because in villages like mine, for example, or in towns like Nazareth, people do not see this because the community is all Arabs, and they're more concerned about what's going on in Gaza, for example, or the security issues more than the social
let's
issues.
get back to the article you published last week about how the ongoing crisis affects your identity crisis.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yes, actually, I wrote the article before the bombing on Gaza began.
For the ground operation.
Way
began.
before.
Yeah,
It started
okay.
only like about 2 weeks. No, it was about 1 week after they started spreading Tzav Shmone for people.
Calling people for reserves?
Exactly. And it was, I had 2 weeks, but I felt really not belonging to any of the sides. Most of my friends are Jewish, but I also have my belonging feelings and all my sympathy to all what the Palestinian people is going through. And my crisis was because, at the one hand, I did not feel sympathy to what was going on in the Arab cities. You know, also there was some calling for a third intifada, and I really did not want that to happen, and it really annoyed me. On the other hand, with my Jewish friend, I started feeling uncomfortable with expressing my own opinions about what's going on, about the occupation.
Did you feel that there's less ability to hear those opinions nowadays?
I felt a bit limited in some way. I think it was all in my head, but still, because it was kind of the first crisis that I have with those friends, so I felt kind of, not certain what can I say, what cannot I say.
Alia, you also experienced your own share of clashes this week. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so first I would like to oppose the term clashes, because basically I was in a demonstration where I was attacked, followed by incitement by the mayor of Haifa against any type of demonstrating against the Israeli actions in the Gaza Strip. The mayor of Haifa accused the demonstrators with an intent of attacking police officers and riots, and this was followed by attacking a group of demonstrators which I was part of, and we had stones thrown at us, and we were severely attacked. This is more like pogroms than I would say clashes between right and left.
And that's in Haifa, which is supposedly one of the cities where coexistence exists in Israel.
Coexistence is a very it seems that it's a term that says that both sides are equal and live side by side. I think that this term is being misused, especially by the mayor when he incites. He also uses, we would not like to disturb the coexistence in Haifa. I think we should start talking about living in a shared society where people can express their nationality. You mentioned earlier the study by Sami Samocha. Having a goal where Palestinians should abandon their Palestinian identity for an Israeli one is, I think, is the wrong goal. Yeah. I think it's not moral. I think it's not effective. Yeah. I think we should try and live in a society where each person in Israel can have his own identity in an equal society.
Yeah, I want to bring up Said Kashua for a second, an author, an Israeli author, who became sort of a symbol of Arab assimilating in Israeli society. He's writing in Hebrew. He's a columnist for Haaretz. He writes a very popular TV show, Avodah Aravit, Arab Work. And recently he wrote a piece that said why Said Kashua is leaving Jerusalem and never coming back. What do you think about how much of the Arab community in Israel can relate to that? How many of them would leave if they were given the choice?
I wouldn't know. I haven't made a study, but I can tell you that we are now living in a situation where the foreign minister is talking about boycotting Arab businesses, and I'm quite curious how he would like to practically do that. Yeah. Maybe put on religious insignias on shops or something. So it is natural that Palestinians in Israel feel that they are not wanted. They are not. They don't feel at home in their own homeland. They don't.
So let's ask Janan.
This is a very confusing question. To begin with, I know that no one's gonna leave, because as you said before, it's our homeland in the end. And even though it's kind of feels that we're not really wanted and we're having those claims about that we need to go out, we're not going to go out. We're not going anywhere. I had a conversation with my mother this morning about this issue, about what our neighbors say, what my uncles say. She was like, well, everyone's just calling Egypt to act and nothing further. And no one's going to leave. I mean, we're rooted here. Everyone has their businesses, their families. We're not going to leave.
Okay.
I think it's about time for everyone to understand that in this Palestinian-Israeli conflict, there are not going to be any winners, and nobody is going to leave.
No,
so it's about time we should find a way to solve this.
Exactly.
Yeah. While Arab communities in Israel remain in a precarious situation, with many of them afraid to vocalize their opinions, abroad they seem to be united in protests. Let's take a look at today's post.
Since Israel's inception in 1948, the Israel-Palestinian conflict has become the most publicized conflict in modern history, which includes 6 wars, 2 intifadas, 8 military operations, 55,000 deaths from both sides, 40 million Google searches, and countless emotional and passionate opinions from around the world. The most recent turning point in world opinion happened in 2001, during the Second Intifada, when the images from the ground were broadcast on 24-hour news channels around the world. Now, with Operation Protective Edge, Palestinian and Israeli supporters are more vocal than ever, both in the media and in the streets. In Paris, riots in the streets, synagogues and Jewish shops attacked. In New York and London, thousands of people demonstrated from both sides. Even in Calgary, Canada, a group of protesters had physical altercations. Jews, Arabs, leftists, rightists, the conflict in Israel has shaken both Arab and Jewish communities. The question remains, if communities abroad can't muster protests for peace and coexistence, what does that mean for Arabs and Jews in this region of the world?
So I guess my first question is, how much does this affect the population within Israel? Ali, do you have any thoughts on the matter?
I don't think it affects the population here at all. mainly because this is not seen on Israeli media at all. I read foreign media all the time, and I see how demonstrations all around the world protesting against this massacre in Gaza have been portrayed in the press, but not in Israeli press. So I don't believe that this really has any effect.
Within the Arab community, is it different? Is there more awareness of what's going on outside of Israel?
Well, yes, because every such demonstration is documented within the Arab networks, not specifically in Israel, but like in the Arab world. So we do know. It makes us feel optimistic in some way, with the hope that those demonstrations would be some pressure on the foreign governments. But I'm not sure how effective that is, because Israel just continues doing what it's doing anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I would like to correct that it does have one effect, is that when it is portrayed in the Israeli press, it is always shown as anti-Semitic activity. And this is something that escalates the hatred and fear among Israelis, and I think this is very
Unfortunately, we have to end, but these are important points to remember. Thank you, Ari. Thank you, Janan, for joining me today. Thank you at home for watching us. Hopefully, we'll still be here next week for another edition of Bloggers. Join us again.